I'm Dr. Winnie King, and I'm here in the lobby of the Children's Hospital in Montefiore in New York City, so you may hear some noise in the background. What's the single biggest issue in parenting? It's sleep. Who's getting it, how they're getting it, and how they can get some more of it. But where are your children sleeping? If it's in your room or in your bed, that's called co-sleeping. In some families, co-sleeping happens almost accidentally, often when a baby cries in the middle of the night. But in others, it's definitely a lifestyle decision. In either case, safety is the critical issue when sharing a bed with a child. Jody Mendel is the Associate Director of the Sleep Disorders Center at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and the author of Sleeping Through the Night. And oh my goodness, you say sleep to a parent and their eyes just sort of roll over. But what exactly is this whole phenomenon of co-sleeping?
Well, there's co-sleeping where you're sleeping in the same room, and bed sharing where the baby is or the toddler is in bed with you. And it's incredibly common, probably much more common than anybody realizes. It's sort of sometimes, the family secret. You don't let people know that your kids are in bed with you. And as you said, there's two different kinds of co-sleeping. It's a lifestyle choice for some families. They decide that they want their child sleeping in their room. And there's real major cross-cultural differences with that. Much more common in African-American families, Hispanic families, Asian families. The other type of co-sleeping is reactive co-sleeping, where you throw them in bed with you to solve the problem. They're crying in the middle of the night, you're gone in 3 times, you finally just go bring them into your bed. Those are families you probably want to make a change. For the other families, it's a decision.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting how they just miraculously stop crying when you put them in bed with you?
It is amazing. They often seem to sleep better.
Well, let's go over some of the areas of concern when it comes to co-sleeping.
Sure. First of all, you have safety, which we'll talk about more, but safety is a huge issue. But there's some positives to it, and I think families need to realize that some people believe that it helps with attachment and bonding. It definitely promotes breastfeeding, and we know that babies should be breastfed till about a year of age. There's also some negatives to it. First of all, does everyone get enough sleep? Okay? A lot of times our babies are being put to bed later than they normally would because the parents aren't ready to go to bed at 7 o'clock. And then also there's this issue about independence, which is your child can't go to sleep if you're not there. So there's no going out at night, there's no letting grandma watch the baby.
Yeah, well, joining us now, Dr. Deborah Campbell. She's the head of neonatology at Children's Hospital in Montefiore, and she's paid particular attention to the issue of safety. And we also want to welcome Kenny and Makita Green, who are classic examples of Jody's reactive co-sleeping. Now, they're trying to figure out whether or not to co-sleep with their baby, Javon. And he is just talking away here. He is definitely letting us know that he is a part of the show. He's 6 months old now, and he cries at night. And that's why you bring him into the bed, right?
Yes. I bring Javon into our bed, and I love having him next to me. I love having him sleep next to me, but I do worry about his safety, and my biggest concern is that I don't want Kenny to roll over on him.
Yeah, sure. Deborah, what does the research say about the safety issue?
The research tells us that babies are more likely to suffocate when they're in a bed, in particular if there is soft bedding, a soft mattress, the potential for a parent or caregiver to roll over on the infant if they're impaired in any way or very deeply asleep.
Okay. Well, Makita, let's look at some of the products that are out there now that can help people have a baby in the bed and still address the safety issue. First of all, we have this device here. And here, let's turn this around.
Okay.
Now, this one just actually sits in the bed, and this is for bed sharing.
Yeah, now this would have been great, I think, especially when he was when he was younger.
Yes,
I think
and a lot smaller.
Now he's probably a little too big for that, but I do like it because then it's not as much of an opportunity for Kenny to kind of nudge him, or me.
Right.
To nudge
Yeah,
him.
it's pretty sturdy too, and it holds him right in the middle. And so this would go between the two of you. Okay, and then we have the bassinet. Now this is more for just co-sleeping because the baby isn't actually in the bed, but this bassinet just sort of rolls up right next to the bed. How would this have been helpful for you?
I love this bassinet, especially for breastfeeding. It's so easily accessible. And it also gives a lot more room for the baby. So Javon is a kid that likes to move around a lot, so this would have been perfect for him. Yeah.
Jody, what are your thoughts about the safety issues with kids?
There's a number of things we'll go over. Just to note that you really don't want a baby in one of these once they're sitting up because they can topple right over. So even at his age, he's probably outgrown something like that.
Yes.
So a number of things about safety. Okay, first of all, always put your baby down on their backs, whether or not they're in their crib or whether they're sleeping in a parent's bed. Okay, you never want to use pillows, comforters, anything soft that's in the bed. You don't want to co-sleep on a couch or recliner. A lot of parents do that. They fall asleep holding the baby on the couch. Much more dangerous to do that. You also don't want the baby to be able to roll over from the bed either into the crack by the wall or rolling off the sides of the bed or the end of the bed. Other issues having to do with the parents. If you're using drugs or alcohol, you don't want to sleep with your baby. If you have a sleep disorder, which makes you so tired you're going to conk out, you won't know if you roll over on your baby, so you're going to make sure. And that's either a diagnosed one or if you think you have a sleep problem or your partner has a sleep problem. If you're ill, if you're unusually tired, again, you don't want to do it. The other thing is thinking about it in a more bigger perspective. You've got to baby-proof the room. Put those medicines away, put the plugs in the, put the caps on the plugs. Make sure if you're having co-sleeping with an infant and toddler, they're separated from each other. No pets in the bed. Lots of people are sleeping with their dogs and cats out there. Yeah. So you're going to make sure that they don't roll onto the baby or they're with them. And never smoke near the baby. A lot of people smoke in bed, which is dangerous anyway.
Sure, and we know that's also dangerous for other health issues with babies as well. You know, as with so many of the parenting subjects that we talk about on the show, co-sleeping is for responsible parents. Do it for the right reasons. Isn't that right, Jody?
Right. You want to make sure you're co-sleeping for both your baby's sake and your sake. You don't want to do it so that there's somebody between you and your bed partner. Sure. I mean, obviously you can't have an adult conversation or other things if your baby's right there. Yeah. So you don't want to do it as a barrier. You want to do it for the right reasons.
Yeah. Well, Makita and Kenny have also mentioned some concerns about consistency. Isn't that a concern with you guys and the baby? What do you mean? What's the problem?
Definitely. I think consistency is a real concern for us. And also, we're worried about spoiling him by keeping him in the bed all the time.
Yes, but you still keep him in the bed.
We do.
Let me make it clear, you can't spoil a baby by having him in your bed. Consistency is an issue. You know, if you're struggling with where he should sleep, you want to be very consistent about where you do it. And, you know, we can talk about how to move when you are ready to transition him.
Yeah. You know, we've been talking about babies, but for thousands of families in the U.S. and in other parts of the world, they've made a commitment to sharing their bed with their kids well beyond infancy, like the Nonkin family, who use their home video camera to give us this portrait of what's known as a family bed.
I'm Kathy Nonkin, and I do consider myself the queen of co-sleeping. Probably because I've been doing it for about 11 years now. We used to talk about people that co-slept before we had children because we never thought we would do such a thing. But once we brought Natalie home from the hospital and tried having her sleep next to us in a different bed, we just couldn't do it. So she came in bed with us, and it's just been that way forever, and we're quite proud of it, and we think it works for us.
Hi, welcome to my room. I'm Natalie Nonkin, and I'm 11 years old. Today, my two brothers sleep with my parents in the family bedroom, and I have my own room.
All right, this is where we all sleep. And Natalie, if Natalie comes in the middle of the night, she might go down the bottom right there and just squeeze
Or
in.
squeeze in by Dad.
And sometimes Max ends up upside down, and we get kicked by a foot once in a while.
What I liked about co-sleeping was that if you ever had a bad dream or got scared, you could always have your parents there with you.
Do you miss being in the family bed at all?
A little bit.
Tell the camera what Gabe does sometimes when he's sleeping.
Sometimes Gabe rolls on top of me or halfway on top of me and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And do you like that?
Yes. Explain why the family bed works for you and your family.
Well, the family bed works for us, and for me in particular, because I'm like a lot of people these days, and I'm at home very often. I work a lot. So I don't see my family very often, I feel like, or as often as I'd like.
So it helps you reconnect after being at work?
Yeah, it does.
And does co-sleeping put a damper on intimacy in marriage?
Well, my children are in the room, so we must, be a little careful about this conversation. But but we do have several other beds in the house, so that works out okay. And so there are other locations to go after the children fall asleep. But I do think it probably does cut down on the amount of intimacy that we have relative to people that don't sleep with their children.
First of all, I wanted to say that this really embarrasses me sitting on your daughter. This is my bed, and these are the night lights that I keep on during the night. Do you have any advice about weaning kids from the bed when they're ready?
Let the kids
It's a gradual
decide
process.
themselves. And they do. They'll make their own decisions.
And we did some things like with a mattress on the floor for a little while, and then you move them to a room and you lie down with them till they fall asleep. So you take little steps to eventually get them on their own.
Love ya. Night. Can you leave the hall light on?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Night. Night, Dada.
Night, Gaby.
Night, Mama.
Night, Gaby.
Love you.
Love you.
Love you.
Say goodnight to Maxie.
Good night, Ma. Good night, Jane.
Well, they seem to be pretty happy with
Yes, they
their
do.
setup there. But what are some of the general issues surrounding independence with children that co-sleep?
Well, we don't know. I mean, you really can't do the research saying these families have to co-sleep and these families can't. We're going to look at you in 15 years. But we do know some inklings that kids who co-sleep are fine, 15, 20 years later. However, getting to the age of 8, 9, 10, 11, kids start getting embarrassed that they sleep with their parents. There's getting to be sleepovers and camp issues. So really, most families in our culture really start to wean away from that.
Yeah, well, any family that co-sleeps eventually has to transition the kids into their own room, and that's something that you're struggling with, both of you, Kenny and Makita, with Javon, isn't that right?
Yes, yes. Kenny and I mutually decided that once Javon reached 6 months, we'd think about moving him into his own room. And now that he's reached that age, we're struggling with how to make that transition.
Yeah, and he's looking at me like I am not leaving my parents' bed. I like it in there. So that's the question for Jody. How do you make that transition?
You want to do it gradually. Okay, so you can do it a whole bunch of different ways. You can start with naps. That may be for some kids a way to do it. Other ways we do it, especially for kids who've never spent any time in their room, is we start with just the bedtime routine. Do his bedtime routine in his room and then move him into your room to go to sleep and then start slowly more and more spending time. Okay. Other times parents move themselves into the child's room and sleep there. And with older kids, like the Nunkins did, is they put a mattress on their floor. Now obviously he's much too young for that. So you want to pick a step that you can do and then just keep building on it until eventually he's sleeping in his own bed all night long.
Yeah. And so it's gradual. It's not an abrupt, because sometimes parents decide, what, I'm over this, I want to move on to something else.
You can't decide Monday night, that's it, I'm done with it. I mean, if you do it for this long, at this point you have to do it slowly.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for joining us on the show, especially you, Javon. You are not going to sleep, are you? We'll see you next time on Keeping Kids Healthy. He's so cute. You're a happy boy, aren't you? And you are so awake.